Blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in 1 Kings chapter 7 and 2 Chronicles chapter 4. Now, if you read this ahead of time, like I really hope you did, you're probably sitting there going, man, what in the world did we get out of today? First Kings is about Solomon finishing up his house and the furnishings for the temple of the Lord. And then Second Chronicles just kind of echoes this building of the furnishings and the utensils for the temple. So, I mean, what do you get out of that? Well, here's the thing. If you love God's Word and you're dedicated to reading it and learning and building your relationship with God, and this takes some time. I mean, you're not probably going to just start snapping on this the first time you read through the Bible, although I pray that you do. But if you really love God's Word and you really study it, and we're investigators, you're going to find things that pique your interest, or all of a sudden you're curious about this one thing and you want to look it up, or you see something that reminds you, hey, I read something about that in another book. Today is a perfect example of that. You read this and it looks like truly a boring read, but it's not. When we look at 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 29, he says, for the 10 stands of bronze, which he referred to in verse 27, on the borders of the stands, they inlaid these bronze figures of lions, oxen, and cherubim. Now, these are decorations for the furnishings inside the temple. God designed this temple, and he gave this design to Moses with very specific measurements. He wanted the rooms to be a specific size. He wanted it to be so tall, so wide. God was very specific. This was his temple, and he wanted it built his way. It's the same thing with the furnishings. And there's a lot of symbolism in these furnishings, and a lot of symbolism in the utensils and the way they made things. And this is evident when they made them for the temple when Moses was there, and then later when Solomon makes them. You can see that they're identical. Solomon followed the blueprints that God gave Moses when he built these things. So um, the lion, the oxen, and the cherubim are symbolic, and they're very important. So don't miss things like this. It's such a brief little glimpse of what these things are when they're building them, but if you recognize what they are, you can go to Revelation chapter 4, verses 6 through 8, and Ezekiel 1, verse 10. And you can see that when um, Ezekiel's prophesying about these four living creatures that come out. And guess what? One has the face of a lion, one has the face of an oxen, and they're cherubim, just like we see here. If you read a little bit further, it's an interesting dynamic of how these creatures move. They move on these bronze wheels. If you keep reading down at these stands in 730, each one of the bronze stands was built with four bronze wheels. And it's just incredible how you can see this and start linking it. Oh my gosh, is this a picture of the four living creatures? And I don't know, but as an investigator, I'm going to start trying putting these things together and see if they fit. And if they don't, no harm, no foul. But if they do, wow, what a cool read today. Same thing when we go into Second Chronicles. Second Chronicles 44, verse 7. He talks about making the golden lampstands for the temple, so it will give light uh, in front of basically the Holy of Holies. So these lampstands are giving off light. Okay, that's what lampstands do. If you read in Numbers, I think it's chapter 8, verses 1 through 4, Moses and Aaron talked about the same thing. They had 7 lampstands that they put inside the tent that gave off light. Well, if you look in Revelation chapter 1, verses 10 through 12, guess what? There are 7 golden lampstands, and they give off light. But it's not just 7 golden lampstands. I mean, we could easily chalk that up to, yeah, well, of course, these 7 golden lampstands in Revelation represent 7 churches that God talks about in Revelation, and they're hugely important. So you see the symbolism in giving off light inside God's temple where they worship to these 7 churches that give off the light of Jesus Christ. We reflect Christ's light, and they're in Revelation. And so it's like God is setting up these symbolic things all throughout history. And if we just don't pay any attention, we miss them. But if we're watching and we're looking for it and we're reading God's word with an intensity and an expectation of Him revealing things to us and speaking to us, we'll see Him. So tomorrow's read is 1 Kings chapter 8 and 2 Chronicles chapter 5 verse 1 through chapter 7 verse 10. Uh, so read it with an expectation of what is God going to show me. This may look boring, but there's going to be something there. If you want to learn God's word and get a relationship with Him, He's going to honor that, and He's going to show you things, and it's going to it's going to come alive. It's going to be so exciting for you. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Be safe.